Hello, everybody. My name is Vinay Srinivas. I lead up the quantitative analytics for APAC global markets at UBS. I'm also in charge of the digital transformation initiatives at UBS global markets in APAC. As part of my job, we do a lot of modeling, a lot of tool analytics development, and also we look at a lot of fintech space. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on how things would improve, especially with focus on BSN, how it will actually help the financial industry. I believe we got other speakers from the financial industry, but it's more on the consumer banking or the retail banking or the digital banking side. From my perspective, as I said, I'm more from a capital markets background. But as a typical investment bank, I would say there's usually three streams or four streams. There's the retail banking that we've already kind of covered with some other streams. We've got the asset management, whereas actually it's creation of funds and still getting into the institutional space. Then we got the private banking or wealth management, as some people call it. That is again for slightly retail oriented, where we actually have a lot of impact with the high net worth individuals. And finally, and this is where I specialize in, is the investment banking side. So in there we have two areas. We have the global markets, or the markets area, where we actually do all the trading in securities. We build our own structured products. We build our own assets, financial assets. And then we got the other side is the investment banking, the actual banking side, who work on the mergers and acquisitions, bringing companies to IPO and things like that. So today's focus for me would be completely towards the market side of things and why we think the recent changes in the financial technology, especially in the distributed ledger technology, why is it going to be pivotal for us in the coming years? So one of the problems that happens in the financial markets or the different banks, investment banks, is that people spend a lot of money on building this system. It's become a technology race, essentially. So if you want to have the fastest systems, you want to have the safest systems, you want to serve your clients best, that's the only way. And the more you spend, the more it's very likely that you'll diverge from between different products. You might end up with different tools, which might be doing similar things, but there's no standards. There's no standards coming out of within a bank, let alone amongst the banks. So today, what we're going to cover is the so what this digital transformation is for my job is that we can achieve more with less. So the marginal cost of developing new things is going to be smaller and smaller as time proceeds. Only then the banks can do well and serve their clients best. So setting that as the background, I'll talk about where the distributed ledger technology really helps us. So the main thing is, as I was saying, that supposing somebody could be doing a bonds business, somebody could be doing equities business, somebody could be doing FX business. These are fairly different. So what do you end up with? The markets themselves are very fragmented. Nobody's combining them. And because the markets are very different, the banks go and build their own kind of siloed systems which do not actually conform to any standards. And then when banks talk to other banks or their clients, the again problem is that everybody's building the same pipes and links again and again. So what's going to happen is that the technology cost, the building of their own tools and everything is just is very expensive. It's just it's not sustainable in the long run. So in the distributed ledger, main things that we see for us is, or as people call it, blockchain, is that we've got, from a markets perspective, we've got three big items that we always think about. Actually, there's four. The first is we always want to have a way to tokenize our identity. So the tokenization is a big theme. You have a digital version of anything that you do. As soon as you digitize a product or the entity, you can minimize the cost there, because you're actually not storing paper, you're not the reconciliation that you build between you and your clients, or between banks and banks, is very, very expensive in terms of maintenance and building these new systems. So so going back to the tokenization part, we can be tokenizing the our identity itself. How can I actually go, and with a very secure way, I can store my identity in a database, and we could use the data identity between each others to talk. The second is that you can tokenize the assets. So if I have a bond, if I have a 10-cent share, can I make it into smaller share, and I can still store it as a certificate, as a digital certificate, rather than actual physical, the electronic one that actually needs to be transferred around. But I can store it in a single database somewhere. And there's also, similarly, there's also, you can tokenize cash as well. And this is where all the central bank digital currency, the DCEP, and all the initiatives are happening. Some of the banks have their own digital version of the currency as well. It's all started evolving, and it's going to gain more and more pace going forward. And the fourth item that I wanted to add was the workflow. And the main thing is the banks, there's a lot of intermediation happening with various systems and processes. That process, we need a workflow. And this workflow is always built, and this is where we spend a lot of money in the technology space, building workflow for how we talk to client, how the client talks back to us, how do we give the client the investment they've made, how do we give them the returns on the investments, and so forth. We spend a lot of money on that. So when this came along, the distributed ledger is actually provides us a very good way to have multi-party systems, everybody looking at the same copy of data. There's only one single data point. You're not copying data from bank A to a client B, and then we're trying to reconcile, oh, did I pay you right? Did I give you the right calculation? So now this is where the smart contracts is going to be really, really important for the financial industry. So, the interesting thing about the financial industry is that the kind of products that we have is could be as complicated. It could be as simple as a stock or a bond, but the bond pays coupons, the stocks pays dividends. You need to model all these things. You need to say, okay, how does client B cannot be seeing the client C's positions or stocks with bank X? How do we build all those things? This is where the smart contract in building the security, modeling the asset life cycle, and how does it actually get issued, how does it actually get bought, how does it actually get into custody, how does it actually get dividends, all those things that needs to be built. And this is where exactly the big impact for the financial industries. Okay, so I'll go and build all the smart contracts and everything. So what's the next step for me? I still need to share I need to have the database, but then we've got a problem now. I go and say, I'm going to use Ethereum. Somebody's going to say, we're going to use Fabric. Somebody's going to say, we're going to use Corda. And this is where every bank and every financial technology player is actually worried that, okay, I choose a distributed ledger protocol or technology right now. How am I sure that this is the technology that's going to be there in 3 years? How am I going to make sure that I can talk to my counterparts, my clients? And this is where all the insecurity comes in, that are we doing the right decision? And that's where I think one of the things that we really, really are looking forward to is the interoperability that BSN is actually working towards. So that's going to be the key thing for once BSN. So BSN is actually focusing on the smart contracts. I know they're looking at the interoperability bit. Using the smart contracts can be deployed in multiple platforms. And that is where I think the value is. So I don't need to, when we go and build systems, we don't need to worry that, okay, this might not be the technology that my client might be using, and we cannot talk to them. And that's where the interoperability comes really important, because then I can think only about my stock, my bond, my dividend, my coupon. And that's where the value of the BSN comes in. The interoperability is one thing. Other thing is also connecting it up for all of us. So instead, if I were to do it myself, I need to go and build a link between me and my client A. I'll need to go and build the same link between client B, or else I'll need to get them all into my network. But what happens if there's another bank Y that is also trying to do the same thing? So either we go and all agree to build one single network that we can all talk to, but then this this takes years and years. All the banks needs to agree, all the clients need to agree. So there's no kind of standard. We'll end up with everybody trying to do the same thing again and again and trying to, okay, this my network is better, you should join mine, or your things will be very difficult. So coming up with a standard network that actually is applicable and is achievable and is easy for everybody to integrate is kind of a primary thing for the financial industry, especially in the markets industry, where we have a typical stock settlement will have at least 4 or 5 players. There'll be the exchange, there'll be the clearing, there will be the custodian, there will be the counterparty. So it's so many things that's actually happening. And it's also, we need to go and build the regulatory reporting. So all those things, every bank does it again and again on their own. They build their own system. So having one single network with the custodian, with the clearing, with the exchange linkage, this is what BSN actually, gives us a new network. As Mr. Yufon was mentioning in one of his other speeches, is the new internet. And how we, just like when we had the HTTP and TCP and all those things came in, there was what we provided a wire, but we did not actually provide the security. We did not provide that they could talk the same language in terms of the assets. And this is where the BSN is going to come very handy. It's not going to be a slow process. There's going to be a lot of challenges, but this is what eventually everything will evolve. And this is how we're going to settle down. So having said that, what are we doing in that space? Obviously, we're looking at all the smart contracting. One thing that happened is ISDA is an organization that actually talks about how all the over-the-counter transactions, so whatever is not listed, how the over-the-counter transactions need to be settled, how they managed, how they life cycled, what is their interaction between different counterparties, how does it, they've defined the rules. They've come up with this set of rules called common domain model, how that will work on the distributed ledger. And this is where, again, with the BSN, we have the base, everybody is looking at smart contracts, and we have a standard there as well that, okay, CDM is the standard, common domain model is the standard. How do we actually stick to that and build now we got a place to deploy these things. I think that's where I think all this starts coming together. Other thing that will actually allow us to do, if now that you have a network, you can connect the BSNs across multiple countries. Now you can actually start facilitating cross-border transactions. So now obviously there's jurisdiction and legality around there, but that's one, you solve it only once. Not every, I don't have to do funds at UBS, and somebody else has to go and do from other bank. That will be solved in one place. And that's where you say, okay, we got this. The efficiency achieved with this is going to be huge in terms of all the interactions that we have. So that covers so just as a summarizing what I've been talking about is that we get the digitization of all, or the tokenization of all our assets and identities is inevitable. That's the only way things will be smoothened. That's the only way you can have either disintermediation or the workflows need to get simpler. And for that to happen, the smart contracts will need to do, but the smart contracts happening on their own would not solve the problem. You still need a network. And in that case, this is where the BSN is a very, very, very noble initiative that is actually trying to set a standard. It's trying to build a network that actually everybody can talk on. So having said that, it's going to be over the years. I know there's a vision there. And it's a very sound vision. It will take time to build. And this is why it's very important for banks like us to collaborate with BSN. We have our own inputs, our own domain expertise on the technology. So BSN will give the technology layer, but the D apps and the all those things, the domain specific applications and the domain knowledge comes from the banks. And this is where I think we need to start collaborating more and more and start building tools. But I think there's two angles there as well. Are we going to go for the retail space, or are we going to just go for the institutional space? I think institutional space makes sense, but again, what it also gives us from a bank perspective is, for now, if I have to do some things with one of my smaller or medium enterprise clients, it's very difficult for me to build a connectivity to them. So if we are actually making the BSN more affordable, because it's a cost sharing happening there, then our smaller and medium clients, medium-sized clients can come on that, and they can avail our facilities. So the cost of servicing a client goes down, and the cost of client acquisition goes down, and that's why it will be the financial service will be much more spread out. So there's, with these 3 points, so setting up a network that's reducing the cost of acquiring a client and servicing a client, and enforcing interoperability between different ledgers that gives more choice to the banks, and also more focus on their domain, on the smart contracts, is what is going to bring BSN is going to bring for us. So I think we are very, that's a 3-point summary that I wanted people to take away from this, but that's the major benefits that BSN is going to give for us, and we are very excited about this. Thank you.